encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY.
WBNY Buffalo.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of 91.3 FM WBNY, the United Students Government at Buffalo State, or Buffalo State itself. Due to the opinionated nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
To join Mr. Hare on today's Living for the People, dial 878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. Or go to facebook.com/91.3 WBNY and comment there. That's facebook.com/91.3 WBNY.
All right, welcome to Living for the People. Following the Buffalo Bills' excruciatingly, close game against the New York Giants. This is L. Nathan Hare. Welcome you to our broadcast focused on providing insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And, of course, our program is live, so you can call in, you can join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We're here with, of course, Norm MacArthur, who is our in-studio audience of one. Welcome, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Hare, and good morning, sir.
He's got that, game doesn't finish until 1:30 in the morning type, hangover. And we're also here with Willie H., who is the IT genius that makes it possible for us to live stream this program. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare calling y'all, 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104.
One of the things that I think that we have to do is to develop an accurate understanding of what is the background, what made this Israeli-Palestinian issue come about in the first place. People don't just get up and start going to war against each other for no reason. There had to be some discernible cause. So I went back to my old high school history books, because a lot of times there's stuff, even though there's a lot of nonsense in those books, sometimes there's a lot of nuggets that tell you what really went on. Norm, when we talk in the Bible about Mesopotamia and whatnot, we know what those places are, right?
Yes, sir.
But it doesn't register with us that at the time of World War I, Turkey was what remained of what used to be called the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire had a lot of control over a lot of the territory in southeastern Europe and in southwestern Asia. Mesopotamia was a part of the sphere of control or influence that the Ottoman Empire had. So when World War II began, the Ottoman Empire actually joined with Prussia, the Germans. And they were a part of the axis of, menace, whose intent was to try to take over the world. And so when the Axis powers were defeated, and now you have to come to some resolution about how countries in the world live. Remember, when the war is over, you still got people that live in the places that were at war. So do you just recreate those same places all over again and recreate the same issues? Or do you try to reorganize how people live and how they're politically connected to each other in a way that would mitigate against future conflict? That's what you would try to do. So something formed called the League of Nations. It preceded the United Nations. And the League of Nations didn't really have any administrative control over anything. They were not an executory agency. They were sort of a collaboration kind of an agency. But their issue was at the end of World War I, what do we do with all of those territories that were under the control of the Ottomans, which Turkey was what remains of that Ottoman empire. And so part of that decision making, because you had Jewish people who said, well, you all trying to figure out what to do with Mesopotamia. We've been in Mesopotamia since 1,100 years before the birth of the Christ, and we would love to be able to have our homeland in Palestine, where the Promised Land used to be. So that movement actually began in the 19th century, back in the 1850s, 1870s, and so on, but it was a trickle of a movement. By the time we got to World War I, you had a whole lot of Jewish people that had begun to move from wherever they lived back into Palestine, even though Palestine was not under the control of Jewish people. At the end of World War I, the League of Nations actually signed off on what they call the Balfour Resolution, signed off on a resolution that gave Britain, England, a mandate over the Palestinian corridor. Because remember, Palestine was not a country; it's just a territory. So, who do you give responsibility for? Running stuff. For schools and roads and the infrastructure of a country. Who does that? So the League of Nations assigned that to Britain. And of course, Britain was being pushed by the Jewish population in Britain. And remember, as I've said this many times, the population of people in Europe, across Europe, all of Europe, including England, including Canada, including the United States, including most of the South American countries, had a visceral kind of attitude towards Jewish people. I mean, just being as blunt as I can possibly be. How the attitude they had towards African people. You look black, so therefore you're not really a human being. Mm-hmm. Well, if you were a Jewish, you were a killer of the Christ. You were anathema to what we want to see as the construct of our various European states. And so the Jewish people wanted to have a place, obviously, that would be a homeland for them where they could live in peace someplace. So the British were really getting tired of trying to administer Palestine in the first place, since the Jews were moving in, at a rapid pace. Remember I told you with the numbers back in 1900, about 13% of the population in Palestine was Jewish and 86% was Arab. But by the time you got to 1947, when the United Nations mandate, that gave that created the modern state of Israel. By the time we got to that state, the Palestinian corridor, you had roughly 33 or 34% of the people that lived in that corridor were Jewish people, and 65% were Palestinians. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, there was twice as many Palestinians as there are Jewish people, even today, in that corridor. But I'm just trying to help us to understand that a movement had been taking place over a period of time that began in the 1850s, 1860s, that matured into the 1940s and 1950s, where Jewish people were buying land and migrating into Palestine. And you know what they say, and Norm, I know you know this because you're a citizen. Possession is 90% of the law, right? If I own it, if I got it, it's almost as good as owning it.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
It just feels like it's mine because it's in my hands, right?
Yes.
And so that's what was going on. The Jewish people, what they call the Zionists, they had adopted that strategy. If we just keep moving in, eventually we're going to be big enough in numbers. And of course, we have money. We come from wealthy, resources or have a lot of wealthy resources that are available to us. And we can use that for us to be able to muscle into a place where these people are relatively disorganized as a country. They were not really a country. So that's how this whole process began. I just need for people to understand that. Now, the people who lived in Palestine even though they were not a country, didn't have a prime minister or a president, and a constitution for all of Palestine, they still lived in Palestine. And they've been living in Palestine for thousands of years before there was such a thing as Abraham, such a thing as Jacob, such a thing as Israel, such a thing as the Bible. Before any of those things occurred, for thousands of years before then, the people who live in Palestine today, their ancestors were living there thousands of years before then. Right. From their point of view, and I'm not arguing about who's right and who's wrong, whose favor you should be in and whose favor you should not be in. I'm just trying to help you to understand the reality here. The people that have been living there all that time, when these Jewish people started showing up, they started saying, "Who are you? What are you doing here? Why? How'd you get here?" They began to resist the increasing presence of Jewish people. The Jewish people responded by increasing their presence. So that's how the axis of antagonism begins. Then they give half of Palestine to the Jewish people, as if the Palestinians had been the ones who had done something to the Jewish people. The Palestinians hadn't done anything to the Jewish people other than the normal back and forth. If I'm a Hatfield and you're a McCoy, you got that kind of stuff going on. But the Palestinians were not arrayed in some kind of an army trying to attack the Jewish people. There were no Jewish people organized that way to attack. The reality is that the Palestinians feel that this is their land, their homeland. It's where their cemeteries are. It's where their churches are. It's where their schools are. It's where their historical memories are. It's everything that they know about themselves to be themselves is there. Today, there are probably 10 or 15% of the Palestinian people who are alive today who were also alive before there was a state of Israel. They still live there, just like the Mexicans, have a right to feel some kind of way about, us walking around California and New Mexico and Arizona, and Texas and so on, swaggering, acting like it's all that. It's been since the 1890s that territory has been in the hands of the United States. But the Mexicans still got, some kind of attitude about that. Well, that happened 100 years ago, 120 years ago. If that only happened 60 or 70 years ago, just think about how current that memory is in the minds of the Palestinian people.
Right.
So that's where their anger, comes from.
Yes.
They feel like they got ripped off by people who they don't even know. Who are these people in the United Nations? I don't know them. I don't have any relationship with them. What gives them the right to start partitioning my homeland and giving land away to other people? Now, the Jewish people, as I've said many times, in terms of empathy, the attitudes that existed amongst the Europeans, Eastern Europeans, Western Europeans, Americans, Canadians, South Americans, the attitudes of racial, ethnic animosity between those people is real. That had, and in some places, it was so raw that, as you saw in Germany, they actually isolated the Jewish population in Germany and assigned people in Germany to attack, to capture, to kidnap, to murder, to rape, to kill, to burn, Jewish people. So they got to feel some kind of way about that, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, they want to be protected from that ever happening to them again.
Right.
So you have those two realities. My point is that those two realities mean that some sets of people who were in power in the world needed to come together and find a way to address that reality that was fair to everybody involved, that gave everybody enough, not everything that they wanted, but gave them enough of what they wanted that they could live with whatever the outcome was. Remember, we used to talk about in Africa consensus democracy.
Yeah.
Consensus democracy means we all vote. If anybody in the vote says, no, I don't want to do this, you are responsible to stop, ask that person, what is it about this decision that you find so troubling that you can't live with it? And then you try to negotiate that out. You try to find a space,
Happy medium.
right, where the person who said no says, well, I still don't like the decision, but I'm okay if you do blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Right, and you do that with everybody who says no, And that's how you come up with consensus. So in Africa, it's referred to in their language translates into our languages. It refers to consensus democracy. That was what was needed instead of the Balfour Resolution.
Yeah.
They needed to come to a point where the people in Palestine felt that they were going to get something out of this that made them okay with the decision to create a Jewish state in Palestine. And the Jewish people needed to feel comfortable that they could get something out of this, that when all got said and done, they would be able to live in a space where they would be free of racism. Yeah. They'd be free of this ethnic bias. They'd be free of people running around here claiming that the Jews killed the Christ, and that was the justification, for all of this, hate and venom, being spewed against Jewish people. Those things had to be worked out, and they weren't. They just, I know that we think of England as the motherland of the United States, but your mother did wrong. Can we be blunt about that?
Yes, sir.
Your mother did wrong. Yeah. See? And your mother has never owned up to the fact that your mother did wrong. Your mother had passed that wrong onto the mother's child, the United States, and the United States has continued to defend and uphold what was wrong. Now, I know they say all these nice things about, well, we want to build some roads and some hospitals, give you a two-state solution, but you didn't do what needed to be done. You didn't bring people together and try to find a space where everybody got enough of what they needed that they could all walk away feeling as if they were whole with whatever the construct was that was created there. You have a situation in Israel right now where the Palestinians, who make up maybe a third of the population of the state of Israel, that the Palestinians who live there have virtually no rights. They can't carry guns, except under certain circumstances. They can't run for office except under certain circumstances. They can't vote in national elections. They got a whole bunch of, it's apartheid. They got to have papers, please, in Israel if you're a Palestinian. I don't know that people are understanding just how horrible this situation was.
Treated like self-standing.
I'm old enough to remember the signs, in certain places that said colored only for this water fountain, white only for this water fountain. I'm old enough to have faced that. You who are not old enough to face that don't understand what that feels like.
I think I can understand what it feels like.
When Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri was jaywalking across the street, and a police officer felt that it was okay for him to pull over, call him over, and put a gun in his face because he was jaywalking. That's the apartheid reality that America still lives in today. Yeah. So I understand how the Palestinians feel. But as a descendant of extremely oppressed people who were kidnapped, people that were murdered, people that were raped, people that were robbed, people that had everything that made them able to remember themselves taken away from them, as a member of that body of people, I understand how the Israelis feel.
Yeah.
I understand where they're coming from, right? It's not an issue of who's right and who's wrong, okay? I understand where they're coming from because they've had to live with this. I've not lived with what they've lived with. They've had to live with this, for thousands of years. And so we have to, we as American people, if we're going to develop policy about how we should relate to what is going on in the Middle East right now, we need to build that policy on the foundation of truth. Say what is true. Say it out loud. Bring the people of our nation together and articulate what the truth is. And then say to the people of America, we're going to come together. We're going to bring our scholars and our politicians and our military people and our economists and our business people, and we're going to try to figure out something that can be done that is sustainable, that can make life work for everybody. We're going to sit with the Palestinian people and ask them, I mean, I understand the Jordanians got something to say, the Lebanese got something to say, the Yemenites got something. Everybody got something to say, but the people that got the most to say are the people that live in Palestine.
Right.
So let's start with them. Then let them tell us who they want to come to the table. And then let's work on how do we do this in a way where everybody can walk away relatively whole. How can we do this so that we don't have murder and mayhem and bombing whole blocks and then having my daughter asking or my wife asking me, well, they're just attacking the Hamas people. There are no Hamas people. Hamas is an organization. The people who are being bombed are not Hamas people.
Right.
They're Palestinian people. They didn't have anything to do with the attack of Hamas against the Israelite border community to Gaza. They had nothing to do with it, didn't know about it, had nothing to do with it. But they're the ones paying the price for it right now.
Right. That would be similar to somebody said, Black Panther, they're black. Yeah, but that's a group. That's not all of black people.
And you may like some of the stuff that the Black Panthers were saying.
And I did.
Right? But you were not the one who said, let's go bomb the flower gardens in New York City.
Right.
You weren't the one that that did that.
Right.
They don't assassinate the reputation and the image of all white Americans because Timothy McVeigh blew up the Murtaugh, whatever it is, building.
Absolutely.
Right. They don't attack all white people. For that. That was that one terrorist, horrible. They even tried to make him out to be nuts. They said he was crazy.
Right.
And so on. He wasn't crazy. He knew what he was doing, and the people he was in league with knew what they were doing. But, that's the point. Instead of arguing over things that are not true, why not put things that are true on the table? Because the true things don't change.
I agree.
The lies change. Go ahead.
I agree with you, Mr. Hare. But like people often say to me, you're a dreamer. Because there's people in the United States and elsewhere want it like it is and want it to continue to probably.
See, they don't call me a dreamer. They call me a risk.
A risk, okay.
They think I'm a risk. I'm not trying to give people any reason to be muscling up with arms against each other.
Right.
I'm trying to get us to look at things in an honest way.
Right.
And figure our way forward. Right. If I rob you and I steal your house, I take your car, I do these horrible things, right? And then you manage to get some people together and muscle me back and recover, the car and the house and so on. But I got all this damage that was done. The person who perpetrated owes. We need to extract something from the perpetrators. If the perpetrator cannot be identified, if you have to deal with this as a societal thing, then you have the society help the persons who were injured recover from their injuries. That's what needs to be done right now. We need to be thinking that way, not thinking in terms of, well, I didn't like the Palestinians in the first place. Well, I didn't like the Israelis in the first place. Your like and don't have anything to do with it. Right now, if we don't control this thing, what I mean by control is if we don't bring ourselves under some roof that's built on things that don't change, on truth, we don't do this, you're going to end up with the Iranians in this thing. You're going to end up with, Iraq in this thing. You're going to end up with Saudi Arabia in this thing. I mean, this can turn into a big, big, big thing. The Russians are, backers of whatever's mayhem in the world. The Russians are always on the side of the mayhem. So they're going to be involved, in this. And the more people get involved, the more tentacles get involved, the more likely that somebody's going to decide this is not a local issue anymore. This is a worldwide issue, and we need to have a worldwide response. Whenever that happens, now it's top down. It's the people that got the most guns, the most money at the top, and they're just going to edict what they want to happen at the bottom.
Right.
And so the people at the bottom, who's always at the bottom of these totem poles?
The dark people?
The darkest people, yes.
Darkest.
Always at the bottom, in other words, when that stuff they call it that rolls downhill, we don't talk about what's on the rest of the hill. There's more to the hill than what we've been talking about. At the way down bottom of the hill, that's where we're going to wind up being. We're going to be underneath the feet of the people that are doing the crushing and the stomping and so on.
Right. I think I might have even lost some friends having this show. I got some people that now act different towards me. And I don't know, maybe they saw this
because
show.
they just can't they can't allow themselves to process that the Palestinians have a point of view that makes sense. They just think, well, if you say something that's not 100%, backing the Jews in Israel, then you're a horrible person.
Right.
You're a skunk. You're an anti-Semite. You're a dog. And so on.
On the evil side.
Right. And that's, I mean, how can the Jewish population, how can you not have empathy for the Palestinian people? I mean, you're saying that, this has been done to you all these years. Well, the Ottoman Empire conquered Palestine, right? And the Palestinians didn't have anything to do with that. They just got conquered. They weren't conquering. They just got conquered, right? And so they have rights. They've been living in this area for thousands and thousands of years. The Jewish population, if you are really generous with your timeline, if you say that Jacob, the son of Abraham, who became named Israel, if you say that the state of Israel begins with the day that occurred, you're still talking about something that happened maybe 1,900 years before the birth of the Christ. You're talking about something that happened then. The people that are the foreparents of the Palestinians, they were living there 6,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 years before Abraham was ever born. How come they don't have any rights? Right? You're about to say something?
Well, it's tough to compute or to come up with who has rights to the. I mean, everybody has. Both countries
or people,
Israel, the people, right, have a right to the area. But like you say, and the only thing I can really see is forming a group of people to come together. I hate to say split the country, but
that's what a two-state solution is, and that's what the Balfour Resolution put forward.
Is that okay?
Right, that's what they wanted. So, I mean, again, we got to be honest on all sides. So just like I've tried to help us to understand this from the perspective of the Palestinians, how they feel about the Jewish population that moved into their country,
right.
Let's flip this around. When the Balfour Resolution, which is the result, this is one of the outcomes of the settlement of countries after World War II. I mean, when wars are over, you have to kind of, put the rooftops back on the houses. You gotta rebuild the roads. You gotta reorganize entities so that people can live. So that's what the United Nations and the armistices and so on were done. That's what they were about, is recreating a new order. When that new order was created, one of the deals that they put forward, that the British put forward, that I guess the United Nations went for, is to partition Palestine into two states. One that would be the state of Israel and one that would be the state of Palestine.
Right.
They promised they would put resources into these two states to help them, become modern states. Go ahead.
I'm wondering if that's the reason, or when it boils down to monetary, Palestine not having the monetary means to basically make it work in that manner.
That's true, that the Palestinians would not have had the same monetary resource base that the Israelis, the Jewish people had, who were migrating into Palestine.
And the support.
Right. But the real problem was the Palestinians were not willing to accept a two-state solution at all. Their position was, you don't have any business being here. Well, you should go back home to wherever you came from.
It's just like somebody coming here and trying to say, hey, we don't, as the United States, we don't belong here. A quick idea: the Arabs, Arabians are moving in. Before you know it, they're going to be bigger than they are now.
Right.
Say they try to take over, it's the same particular thing. Or, as my brother brought up last week, us and the Indians.
Right.
I mean, it's a tough situation.
Right. So that's the issue that exists. The Palestinians were not willing to accept the two-state solution at all. They just wanted Israel to disappear.
Right.
So we've been stuck in that morass. Israel is saying that even though we agree, that you were Palestine before we showed up and whatnot, but this was our Aboriginal homeland. We became Israel in the Promised Land. And we want to go back there because we can have a space where we can be free of the prejudices and biases and hatreds of other people in our own space. The Palestinians have not been willing to accept that. My view is that we have to somehow bring people together, and we got to find out, for you Palestinians, hate cannot be the only thing that you are campaigning for. Animosity towards the Jewish people cannot be the only thing that you are campaigning for. Do you want water? Do you want food? Do you want tomatoes?
Yeah.
Do you want textile factories? Do you want, fresh water rather than salt water? Do you want schools? Do you want medical, facilities? What do you want? Other than just despising the fact that Israel exists, other than that, set that over here and say that's a given. That's what you want. What would make you feel okay with you, aside from your hatred towards Israel? What would make you feel okay with you?
Yeah, start from there.
That needs to be articulated, and then we need to fight for that, so that we can walk away whole.
Yeah.
Right. You can't walk away whole unless you give somebody a way forward. That they can live with. Right.
Might have to give up something. Just a little bit.
Everybody got to give up something.
It's called a compromise, Mr. Harris.
Everybody got to give up something. The United States gave up $3 to $6 billion a year to finance the development of Israel. Everybody got to give up something.
Can a two-state solution work?
So that music, Norm, there's a reason why they play that music.
I got it.
All right. Say, please don't go away. We will see you on the other side of the break. Please call us at 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We'll see you on the side of the break here at Living for the People, 91.3 FM, WBNY.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM WBNY Buffalo. Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan here, your host. We're here with Norm MacArthur, who is our in-studio audience of one. Welcome back, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Hare.
And of course, we're here with Willie H., who is the IT genius and makes it possible for us to do the live streaming of the program. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody. I now got my MacBook Pro all instituted into the Nathan L. Show. Got all my graphics and fonts, so I'm feeling good. But call in, guys. Show doesn't mean anything if you guys not listening, which I know you are. But call in, let us know what you think. Right. 716, that's 716, guys. 878-5104. One more time, 716-878-5104.
Yep, call in and give us your perspective. What we're trying to do is to help us have balance. We're not the ones that are directly involved. So, but our money is involved.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know about y'all, but I pay taxes. and I pay a lot of taxes. Right?
Not only that, like the Palestinians, we all want to be treated
the same,
fairly.
Right. I'm not asking for anything else. I just want to be treated fairly and justly,
right,
like everybody else is.
And I think most of the
treated.
Palestinians, we probably talk to them. We'll give Israel what they want, but just let us. We want to just be able to
I don't comprehend. I have friends, older friends, that have actually lived in Palestine,
right,
and they lived right across the road from Israelis, and vice versa.
Right.
All while the Balfour Resolution was being negotiated, all this stuff has been going on in the world. These folks have been living over there all that time.
Wow.
For dozens of years, maybe dozens of decades. They've been living in each other's space all this time.
I haven't heard that perspective.
There are some communities in Palestine where like almost half of the population is Israeli and half of the population is Palestinian. It's in the Palestinian territories, and they live in sort of comfort with each other. They shop at each other's stores.
Right.
They visit each other's families.
That's the story we don't hear.
Right. They don't talk about that. So, it must be possible for Israelis and Palestinians to live in this area of the world together without shooting at each other. That just has to be possible.
Right.
Right? Norm, I see you got that citizen look on your face.
I just want to ask a question. I'm wondering, and I think that the main issue, more than anything, is the land. Also, we know that religion might come into play, but are those the only two differences? Because they're like people. They seem that they can live together.
Their languages are so close. It's like Spanish and English, maybe even closer than that. The land, the people lived across the land. There are Jewish people who live in the northern territories of Palestine. There are Palestinian people that live in the southern territories of Israel. What you have are people who have political ambitions. The people who didn't like the fact that they lost World War II and then lost World War I.
Back to people in power.
See, you know what I mean?
That 1% again.
Right. And so you got people that are trying to create the greater Mesopotamia again. Most of us don't even know what the word Mesopotamia means.
Like you always say, Mr. Hare, this is even with this, and it reigns true, boiling down to the self-interest of the people in that particular area.
There you go, right? Yeah. So you got those people that are still mad about how World War II got settled, still mad really from how World War I got settled, and so you got people playing politics and putting lives of human beings on the line for the politics, right? So at the end of the day, I feel that African people should receive, some significant compensation for the horror that African people have had to live through over the course of the last 350, 400 years at the hands of other people in this world. But the reality is that's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. But I tried to work this out mathematically, and I mean the numbers are just so extreme.
Oh my God!
If you were to try to add up the value of people's labor and the cost of their land and their inventions and this and that, it just gets to be so unwieldy you can't even articulate that.
Yeah.
So why talk about something that is just so unimaginable that it can't get done? Why not say, listen, whatever happened yesterday, what do I need today for me to be okay today? How do I ensure that my kids, my daughters, my grandkids, how do I ensure that they have a reasonable chance at a quality life, in this world? Right. How do I get that done? Yep. And whatever I can do that can create that space where it is routinely accessible and available to my people, if I can get that done, then I'm done with the rest of it. Okay? I don't need to spend my time hating on you. I'll recover my history on my own. I'll do my archaeological research on my own. I'll find my way back to who I used to be before you put your hands on me. I will do that on my own. I just need for you to leave me alone. Do we have a caller hanging on?
Yes, we do.
Oh, let's get that caller real quick. Hi, caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Great. I hope that we're making at least 1 ounce of sense.
Well, you know what, Mr. Hare? I am calling to just thank you because so many people won't touch on both sides of the story and have an open discussion. And really, I'll be honest with you, I'm a veteran myself. I'm retired Navy, did over 20 years in the Navy. And up until recently, I never even heard of the Balfour Declaration.
I can't tell you how many people told me what you just said.
Yeah. And when I discussed it with other guys, it's new to everyone I discussed it with. Like, hey, this decision was made in England.
Right.
The Palestinians had no word in it. Really, because you would, and it's like, why would you send, and I get the Israeli, they wanted to go back to their homeland and Jerusalem and all that. But that is a tough decision to be made by an outsider.
Right.
To send people. And you have to look at it from both sides. So I just wanted to say, I appreciate you discussing it openly from both points of view, because it's always pro-Jew. And I'm in no way am I anti-Jewish. I know Jewish people. I know Palestinian people. They're all good people.
Right. Absolutely.
But we have to have an open forum and discuss a better way, because whatever's been going on is not working.
Yep. Yeah, and we have to have integrity in those discussions. You have to really be trying to find a solution, not trying to pacify people, because human beings are very quirky. If they feel like you're trying to pacify them, you're never going to get them off your back.
Yeah. Right? That's right. But,
hey, Mr. Hare, I'd just like to acknowledge this young gentleman here. This is my cousin Terry.
All right, Terry.
He's calling from Charlotte, and he's a very knowledgeable brother. Navy, put the time in. He know what he's talking about.
All right, we're loving to hear it from Charlotte.
Charlotte in the house.
Definitely. And again, I just wanted to thank you guys, and keep doing what you're doing, and keep being fair, and I'll keep listening.
All right, thank you very much. We look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you, big cuz.
So one of the things that I wanted to help us to understand, I didn't quite have my own arms around this, because I always thought of Hamas as like, we were talking about the Black Panthers, and so on. It was an organized group.
Yeah.
But the Panthers didn't have territory, you know what I mean? They didn't have hospitals. They didn't own counties, and stuff like that. They were just a group of people that were organized around the country, and they were trying to do good things. A lot of people don't remember that the Panthers started out doing freedom schools, Ella Baker schools. They started out doing food pantries.
Yeah,
the very things that we talk about right now.
Yeah.
Panthers were doing that stuff in the mid-1960s and so on, right? But they were not some territorial-based, or organization. Well, in that same sense, the Israelites, in Palestine, they were not, or let's not even go that far back. Look at what we're looking at today. The Hamas in the Gaza Strip. They're an organization. They have been given administrative roles in Gaza, so that they're the administrators, of Gaza. Now, people don't understand. Well, they're administrators of what? Gaza has a border with the Mediterranean, right? So that's water.
Yeah.
But it has a border with Egypt, has a border with Israel. I'm not sure what the other border is. I think there's another country that they have a border with. Jordan or somebody they have a border with. But whatever the case is, that border is patrolled by the Israelis. The Israelis do not permit people to cross the border except at certain points where they can be checked in, scanned, biometrics, whatever they do, to identify people, so that you can go work someplace and then come back, into Gaza. But the borders of the Gaza Strip are tightly patrolled by the Israelis, and you just can't cross in any numbers across any of those borders. Even Egypt doesn't really want to take refugees coming across the border with Egypt. Now, why would Egypt do that? Because Egypt, and I'm not trying to be ugly with the Egyptians, okay? I just want to be honest. The Egyptians don't want a refugee problem that they have to pay for. Remember, when the refugees come across the border, they don't have a place to stay. There's no housing for them. There's no medical facilities. There's no roads. There's no electrical apparatus for you. You just coming over here with your duffel bag, and your kids, and that's what you're coming into Egypt with. Egypt doesn't want that burden because it's expensive. Think about what we go through in Erie County right now for the refugee population in Erie County right now. You got to provide housing.
Yep.
You got to provide medical care.
Yep.
You got to provide water, clothing, food, access to jobs, protection in the communities that they're in. I mean,
Which they do. They put them to work real quick.
This is a humongous, operation, right? Yeah. And so you want to get people working as soon as you can because you want somebody else to be paying the bill besides you as soon as you can, right? Erie County gets money from the federal government to pay for probably 80%, 90% of the cost of those refugees that are being provided asylum in Erie County. But, when does the government pay you? Y'all don't know about that, right?
Month or so.
You get the bill in January, but you don't pay the bill until June, right? That's part of the issue. You do get mad at Mark Poloncarz. You think he's a insensitive person, but the reality is when you get 500 people show up in Erie County and you got to pay $20,000 a year, for those people. I don't know what 20,000 times 500 is, probably something in the area of $20 million. That money got to come out of somebody's pocket right now. Now, they may pay you some of that money back, later on, but later is not today. If I got to pay the money out today, the money comes out of my pocket today. I want people to understand that reality.
A lot of business shut down because of that aspect.
Right. I mean, I appreciate the fact that we have people in this county that are willing to volunteer. We have Journey's End and other organizations in Erie County and Buffalo that volunteer to do this work. But it still costs money. Money has to come from someplace. And the sources of the money don't give you the money that they say you're eligible for at the same point when you actually incur the cost. You have to pay money out, incur the cost, and then hope that these people reimburse you at some point in the future. Go ahead, Nora.
In the process of just learning about this and just kind of trying to put some thought towards it, I'm kind of in agreement with the Bill 4 resolution. I really am. But I'm also an advocate for adding a nice piece of the hair solution. Now I'm just saying. Now we have to be able to control borders. We want to put people to work.
Yep.
We want to be able to, and at the same time, pacify everybody that's involved in the situation.
And let's not say pacify, because that sounds patronizing. Let's say it a different way. We need to find a way to give everybody enough of what they need that they can walk away feeling like they're whole.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay? That's all we want.
Yeah.
Because if we do that, tomorrow, when you remember what we did yesterday, you will say, yesterday they made me whole, today is today, and I'm still whole. And you'll wake up a week from now, wake up again and say, man, it's a week later, and I'm still whole.
Yeah.
That's what will happen if you do this the right way. But if you do it where you're taking things from people, you're sneaking people, you're doing things that really are just in your interest and not in their interest, that person will wake up next week and say, I'm missing my leg.
Well, with that, Mr. Hare, the other aspect that goes to this is implementing the honesty thing. We got to be honest about what the real situation is, and once it's broken down to that, then you can work from there, and you can go from there, and everybody may not be in agreement, but a consensus will be formed.
And so, just building on that honesty issue for just a moment, if we understand that honesty has to be the core, integral spine around which these decisions have to be made, then you have to take some responsibility for hiring Donald Trump to be the president of the United States. You got to own that. You need to be putting out placards everywhere. There should be signs. It should be the headline in every newspaper. We're sorry. We know we did wrong. Willie was live streaming and put the wrong stuff on the live streaming and whatnot. Something. You can't have integrity if you would hire people like that on purpose to be your congresspeople, to be your senators, to be your president.
Really
if
true.
you did that, then that had to be deliberate. You did that on purpose. You can't have integrity if you do stuff that has no integrity.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So we need to face that. One of the things I was trying to get my arms around, I know we got about 10 or 15 minutes left, I was trying to get my arms around was how is it that the Israelis are saying that they are arrayed and going to go to war against Hamas? Because I'm thinking of Hamas as being more of an organization, not as something that's like a state, with land and military bases and an Air Force and so on. Well, it turns out Hamas may not have an Air Force, but they do have lots of munitions. They have mortars and rockets, and they got guns, they got rifles. It's not like they're a toothless organization. They do have a lot of elements. And I tried to figure out what that was. I went to an article written by Samia Nakul entitled How Hamas Secretly Built a Mini Army to Fight Israel. This was an article published by the Reuters Press organization. Israeli forces poised to invade Gaza on a mission to wipe out Hamas will confront an ever more capable opponent that has been training for years in a clandestine support network that stretches far beyond its enclave in Iran and allied Arab groups. Hamas' deadly attack on southern Israel, unprecedented for the group, was a devastating demonstration of the military expertise it had gained since the war in 2007 in Gaza. Ali Baraka says necessity is the mother of invention. And he says that the Hamas group had long drawn on money and training from Iran and Iranian regional proxies like Hezbollah, while bolstering its own forces in Gaza. Difficulty in supporting weapons meant that over the past 9 years, they had developed their capabilities to actually manufacture their own weapons. So some of that stuff that you saw on TV, those weapons caches that the Israelis had acquired, they had been, going into places in the Gaza Strip, finding, little places where the Hamas had operations, and they found these weapons, right? These were some pretty advanced weapons that the Hamas people had. Interesting is they manufacture some of those weapons themselves. They're not necessarily weapons that they're getting from Iran or Iraq or someplace else. They're actually manufacturing the weapons themselves, right? That was a capability I didn't know that they had. In the 2008 Gaza war, Hamas rockets had a maximum range of 40 kilometers, about 25 miles. Today, they have a maximum range of 230 kilometers. That was by 2021. And I forgot what that number means, but it's something in the area of 125, 130 miles that those missiles can fire. 130, 140 miles is a whole lot different than 25 miles,
right,
in terms of where you can penetrate. Now you can send a missile to somebody's home in Israel, which you wasn't able to do before.
Right.
So today, the secretive and sprawling organization is, is unrecognizable from the small Palestinian group that issued its first leaflets 36 years ago, protesting the Israeli occupation. That's what Hamas was. It was a protest group.
Right.
And so, according to Reuters, they're saying that Hamas's capabilities and regional, including Hamas's figures, regional security and officials and military experts are the source of this information. They said that they are a mini army. He said the group had a military academy training, a range of specializations, including cybersecurity. It boasts a naval commando unit. Hamas has a naval commando unit. I didn't know that they had that capability either. And that their military, at least the people they say they can call on, are roughly 40,000 people. Now, maybe that's Hamas boasting, but if they're boasting 40,000 people, they probably have 10 to 15,000 actual people they can call on a given day.
Wow.
Right.
So so early in the 2000s, the group had built a tunnel network under Gaza to help fighters slide away from the view of the Israelis. They had house weapons factories. They bring weapons from abroad. They have a regional security force. The group had acquired a range of bombs, mortars, rockets, anti-tank, and anti-aircraft missiles. Hamas officials, according to, this is from the Hamas officials. This is not from the Israelis.
Right.
That's what the Hamas officials are saying. Their expanding capabilities have produced increasingly lethal results over the years, and so on. H.A. Hellier, who is a senior associate fellow at Britain's Royal United Services Institute, said Israel was capable of destroying Hamas, but the question is not whether Israel can destroy Hamas. The question is what price will be exacted on the rest of the population.
Wow.
That's the issue that we've been talking about for the past week. So after the most recent Gaza war in 2021, Hamas and an affiliated group called the Palestinian Islamic Jihad managed to retain about 40% of their missile inventories. They kept roughly 11,750 missiles since 2021 that they still have in their possession. 11,750 missiles.
Do we?
Can you imagine what damage can be done if they fired all those missiles into Israel at one time? Even if they lose the war, they're gonna put such damage, on the Israelite, population and its infrastructure, that it's gonna take tens of years, to undo what's being done. And what's being done in Gaza, it's just unimaginable. You see whole blocks completely demolished and whatnot, right? You were about to say something?
I was just wondering, do we have numbers on the Hamas, and also are they seem to be very similar to the Wagner Group? You know what I mean?
The Wagner Group is like a private army.
Well, yeah.
Hamas is not a private army. Hamas is a organization that springs up from the people that were angry about the position that they've been placed in Palestine, that Israel was put into existence. People, I think I mentioned this before, the resolution that put Israel in place happened in 1947.
Yeah.
In 1948, the Israelites expelled 750,000 Palestinians from the area that was now the new state of Israel. The Palestinians that lived there were not allowed to continue to live there. They were expelled by the Israelis. Those Palestinians that were still there are living under an apartheid regime. That's a lot of, there's a lot of pieces to this story. Yeah. So I'm trying to help us to understand the roots of this thing. But all of these crimes that have been committed against people on both sides, they're the result of us not dealing correctly with the original root of this thing. And you really have to go back to the original root and bring people to a point of truth. Admit what's true.
Yeah.
Then let's go forward. The Ottoman Empire existed. It controlled Mesopotamia. They joined the Axis powers in World War I. They lost the war. When they lost the war, all the stuff that the Ottoman Empire had was up for grabs for the powers that won the war. That's the way wars go. You launch a war, you win, you take stuff. You lose stuff. That's the way wars go.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happened in World War I. But we're not dealing with that. We allowed the Jewish people to use that time period to begin to muscle up their presence in Palestine. And at the end of World War II, they gave half of Palestine to the Israelite people.
With that,
the Palestinians, who had nothing to do with World War I and had nothing to do with World War II, they just wound up paying the price, right?
Yeah.
For other people's misconduct.
Yeah, like I say, with that being said, that puts us as a big factor in what happened over here, just right. Giving a state away that we had nothing to do with.
The United States has to own it, because the United States co-signed that and made that possible. The United States put $3 to $6 billion a year into the creation of the state of Israel, building roads, hospitals, schools, et cetera, in the state of Israel.
And if they would do right, if they were going to do it, but that's how come we're allied with Israel, they should have given Palestine something.
But
also.
the problem is, if you did that for Palestine and the Palestinians didn't accept it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
See, if the Palestinians say, well, I appreciate you giving me, those cigars and whatnot, but I still want to kill your mother, right? Well, we're just not going to be able to get along, are we? I'm just trying to say what's true, okay?
Yeah.
We have to go forward with honesty. So listen, that music says that we've been in somebody else's time period for a couple of minutes. Let's apologize to them. Thank you all for listening to us and supporting us. We look forward to talking to you all on Wednesday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM, WBNY. Hopefully we're making some sense. Call in next on Wednesday.